Dorie Clark is an author, professor, and expert on the art of business and relationship development.
97% of senior leaders said that strategy is one of the most critical aspects of their job. Meanwhile, 96% of senior leaders said they didn't have enough time for strategy.
In this episode of Real Relationships, Real Revenue, we talk about how to balance the short-term needs of revenue generation with the long-term game of relationship building.
It's about long-term relationship building. That's what really drives results. And meanwhile, you look around and you're like, yeah, but I need something now.
The right and the wrong way to create a book of business.
There are three major ways that people network. Short-term networking, long-term networking, or what I call infinite horizon networking.
And how to create a relationship ecosystem and advantage that grows your business development career.
It's these relationships, the random relationships, that sometimes turn out to be 20 years later, the ace in the hole where you say, oh my God, the astronaut is working at a consulting firm and they're the person who can hire you. I don't know where it's going to go, but this is going to be interesting.
So Dorie, first question to you. People that are professionals or account managers at big service-based companies, one foot in the delivery of some complicated service, and they've got one foot in retention and growth, the hybrid sales role, if you will, toughest role in the world. What's your big idea on how they can do better?
Almost every professional, but especially highly educated, super smart professional service providers grapple with all the time is the idea of just balancing these long-term and short-term needs. I mean, obviously, we need to drive revenue. We need to bring in business. We also are looking around. We've got social media. We've got all these sort of competitive things happening. And it seems like sometimes it's working so fast or so well for other people. And yet we also hear the message, perhaps softer and quieter, that, oh, well, it takes time. You have to be patient. It's not about overnight. It's about long-term relationship building. That's what really drives results. And meanwhile, you look around and you're like, yeah, but I need something now. So how do you thread that needle? That is what we are really trying to tackle and talk about in the book. And so ultimately, one of the biggest things that I talk about when it comes to networking, the word that so many people hate, and really just building your network of people, is that there are three major ways that people network. And the first one is the one that frankly gets talked about the most, and it's the one that people, I think, justifiably hate, which is short-term networking. It's all about, what do you need tomorrow? Well, I need to make a sale. Okay, who can I call? I've got to make this sale. I've got to meet somebody and do this. And it feels predatory because frankly, it is predatory. All you are looking for is, what can I extract from someone? And so instead, and again, it's fine if you already have a relationship with someone and you have a new product or something, like, great, you can call them. We're pals. Hey, Mo, I have a new thing. Are you interested? Yes, great. No? Okay, no worries. Well, if you hear of anybody, let me know. That's fine. But for people that you are meeting, you can't go in with that mentality. You need to either have long-term networking or what I call infinite horizon networking. And the difference really is, for long-term networking, you don't necessarily know what the person can get you. You have perhaps an idea, a suspicion that they might be a useful contact at some point. Maybe they're a prominent person in your industry, or they're a potential buyer, but you don't know. Is it tomorrow? Is it 6 months? Is it 6 years? But you're developing that relationship with the long-term mindset, saying, I am explicitly not trying to get something from this person tomorrow. I'm getting to know them. And that it becomes the basis. And then infinite horizon networking is something totally different. The person, literally, you might not have anything in common with them. You might not have any idea how they could be helpful to you professionally. They could be an astronaut. They could be a comedian. They could be a dog trainer. But the whole point is that they are interesting. And you cultivate these relationships, because the thing that we see again and again is that, you know what? You never know where people end up over time. And it's these relationships, the random relationships, that sometimes turn out to be 20 years later, the ace in the hole where you say, oh my God, suddenly the astronaut is working at a consulting firm and they're the person who can hire you. Or, oh my gosh, the comedian is now the head of a television network and they want to bring you in to be the auditor for it, whatever it is. But it's about having that infinite perspective of, you know what, I don't know where it's going to go, but this is going to be interesting.
Oh, Dorie, I love it. Follow-up question. So with this infinite horizon idea, is it that you're really looking to be helpful in any way possible and you just got no expectation of anything in return?
Yeah, it's about being helpful, but honestly, it's about meeting cool people, right? We sometimes, when we think about networking, so often it feels like it has to be a chore. Like, oh, I have to do my networking. I want to try to inject a little bit more joy into the process. Like, how cool is it to meet cool people? Like, don't we all kind of want to be friends with astronauts? Like, that's just neat. And because they become your friends, of course you want to help them. But I also think sometimes a place where we go wrong with networking is the person who's like the overeager puppy, like, tell me, how can I be helpful to you? And it's like, I don't know. I just met you. Like, it's like, don't put all that pressure. I have no idea. It's like, just treat them like, hey, I want to get to know you. That's enough.
Well, I'm laughing because this is how we met. Our mutual friend Dave's like, I didn't know what's going to happen, but Mo, you're writing a book and Dorie has a bunch of books and I just really like her. So just meet when you're in New York. And I was in New York and we met at Joe and the Juice and it was fun. And I don't know what was supposed to happen, but really good things happen. I signed up for your newsletter. I got great advice. I found a book for my daughter. I mean, just all kinds of random things have happened. So one last follow-up on this topic and we'll wrap up this episode because I'm interested in this. My guess is all the business professionals getting bombarded. They're trying to get to inbox zero. They got a reorg they just went through. They're afraid of the next one that's coming up. That's actually a client I was just talking with. And they would say, I love this idea, but how do I make the time?
Yeah, absolutely. And we are all pressed for time. It's a stressful world, no doubt. What I like to suggest is a couple of things. Number one, I firmly believe that all of us can find an hour in our week. It's really just a question of what we're prioritizing. And so this is not saying you have to spend 20% of your time doing this. This is very much a kind of compound interest type thing, right? So if you can find 1 hour a week to say, you know what, all right, I'll have coffee with one person or even a half an hour now that we're doing Zoom calls, right? It doesn't take that much to say, okay, I'll have a chat if the person seems legitimately interesting. I think that's very doable. I also am a fan personally of networking in bulk, I guess you could say, which used to be having dinner parties in person. Now, in the pandemic, I have taken to having virtual cocktail parties, which enables you to invite a bunch of people. And so you have 8 people, 10 people even, and you do a virtual cocktail party and you get to know folks that way. And folks are often very appreciative to be invited because, frankly, in a pandemic, they're not invited to a lot of things. And it's a chance to get to know other folks all at the same time. So those are a couple of ways that you can be quite efficient in your networking.
I love it. Okay, I promised only one more question. I've got one more, just one more, but I think it's a good one. I love your litmus test. A couple times here, you've used this very specific word, interesting. People that you find that are interesting. Is that the right way to look at this? Because that seems like you'd want to free up that hour if you just found somebody who's interesting. You want to get to know them.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I actually have another concept I talk about in my forthcoming book, The Long Game, which is going to be coming out in September from Harvard Business Review Press. And I actually call the concept optimize for interesting, because as we think about how do we spend our time, how do we make decisions about our professional life, the default in our culture, of course, is like optimizing for money. And then some people reject that. They say, oh, that's so crass, that's so craven, I don't want to do that. And so then the pressure is like, will you optimize for meaning? Well, that's great if you have this cause that you're so passionate about. There's a lot of people that are like, I don't really know. Like, if you are not going off and building wells in Africa or whatever, what does that mean for you? How do you choose if there's not like some North Star that's been inexorably guiding you? And what I suggest is, you know what? Do what's interesting. Everybody has things they're interested in. It doesn't have to mean it's like the most profound thing in the world, but if you follow your curiosity, it will almost certainly lead you in interesting directions.
How can people bring in more opportunities? At the end of the day, we've got to have commercial success or we don't keep our job. So how can people use the concepts of the long game to do just that?
So, one of the things that I have been thinking about a lot in writing The Long Game is about how we can actually be preparing for these sort of larger goals that we have, right? And one of the things that frustrates a lot of people is they have some kind of a goal. It could be a big, meaningful goal, and it seems so unattainable in the moment because they have the press of responsibilities. They have all the other things they need to do. How can they ever make the time to accomplish this or to get to the place that they want to go? And one of the things that I have been really fascinated about, and I interviewed a lot of people about how this played out, is something that many of us have perhaps heard about. It was first created by 3M in Minnesota, popularized by Google, but something that I think is really important for all of us to adopt in our own personal lives is the concept of 20% time. And for folks who might not be familiar with it, it's the idea, apparently, depending on who you talk to, Google used to do this more than they currently do it, but some people say, oh, no, it's still a thing. So TBD. But basically the idea is that you, as a professional, as an employee, can devote up to 20% of your time on a special project. And you choose what it is. It benefits the company, but you have discretion in what that thing is. And it's intended to be experimental. You're building your skills. You're working on something that you think is interesting and has potential. And that's great for people at Google, but I actually think that we all need to seize the mantle on it. Because the issue is you can accomplish almost anything. You can build the kind of business, the kind of practice that you want. The issue is, what is your runway? Because if you're talking about making huge changes, of course that can't happen overnight, right? But if you are planning methodically, really powerful things can happen. In fact, in my very first book that I wrote, and I have a prop of this right here, it's called Reinventing You. I tell the story of a woman named Patricia Fripp, who was, of all things, she was a hairdresser, and she wanted to reinvent herself into being a professional speaker, which is kind of a big transition. But for her, she actually was so incredibly methodical. I think we can really learn from this. She had a 10-year lease on her salon, and she said, you know what? That's my runway. And so the first few years, whatever money she made from speaking, not a lot, she would just sort of reinvest it in all the things she needed, the website, the web design, get business cards, all of that. Later on, she was making a little bit more money. She invested it in herself. She invested in training so she'd get better. She really worked on leveling up her skills. And over time, she got more and more exposure, more and more experience. By the time year 10 rolled around, she was able to shut down her salon, walk away from the lease, and she had more than made up her salary. People often talk about, oh, you make a leap or you dive off the cliff. You don't have to dive off any cliff. Even if you have an audacious goal, if you give yourself enough runway and you devote small amounts of time to it, your own 20% time, there's very little risk. That's the whole point. Patricia didn't have, the year when she ate ramen. She didn't have to, because she was so methodical about it. And that's what 20% time allows us to do, is to really reach for big goals, but do it in a way that de-risks the proposition.
I like that. So to go a step deeper, if we talk about bringing in more business, growing our book, of getting more yeses, getting more opportunities, that idea of 20% time could be developing a killer keynote speech that you're going to use to meet new people. It could be developing an amazing analysis that you're going to go offer potential clients to be able to put them through at no charge to figure out how you might be able to save them money, help them money, make the process better, do a strategy session, whatever. We call that a give to get, something that people could see you in action while you work with them to create demand for them to hire you. So those are just a couple examples, but it sounds like that's where you're going, where we've got to dedicate time to basically build out our business development infrastructure, to build our brand so that we can win more opportunities. Is that sort of where you're headed?
That's exactly right, Mo. And it could be developing unique IP that enables you to reach people in new ways. Maybe it's starting a podcast, for instance, which can attract clients to you. That's a great use of 20% time. Maybe, in fact, it's networking related, because you might say, you know what, I'd really like to go deep in this particular community. I really want to get to know people that are in this field or that live in this area, whatever it is. But if you invest enough time, if you join the clubs, if you go to the meetings, if you're involved in that community, then over time you do become the trusted choice that people know and are familiar with. And they say, oh, right. Oh, he does that. And it enables you very seamlessly to be able to attract more business rather than just this brute force of like, oh my God, I don't know anyone. I guess I'll cold call them, which we know how well that works. And one of the strategies that we talk about in the long game is actually, and I think this is probably answering it in a slightly different way than you intended, but I think it's an important point to raise, is how to think through turning down offers and how to make sure that you are clearing your plate so that you actually have the time and space to connect with the right people. As we get more successful as professionals, we are more in demand, and it almost seems inevitable that a large percentage of the people that want to spend time with us are actually maybe not the people we should be spending time with. They are folks who want to pick our brains, or they're people who just, they don't really seem to have a conception that we might be busy or have other things to do. And it can be really hard and challenging to make that transition because we want to be nice. We want to pay it forward. We might have connections to some of these folks, even if tenuous ones. And so it becomes really challenging to figure out, okay, how can I actually, in a nice way that is able to somehow preserve a relationship, deflect this so that I have the time and space to allocate to the relationships that really matter. So that's one of the pieces that I talk about, is really thinking through, how do we say no more often and feel comfortable doing it?
Well, you can't just leave us there. Tell us how to do it. I got to hear more. Nice.
All right.
I'm curious. I'm very curious.
For sure. Well, one of the strategies that I've actually found to be most effective, and this seems very ironic and basic in some ways, but it is a hidden, powerful tool, is simply asking for more information. Because what I have really learned over time from my own experiences and also from the folks that I advise, the different clients that I work with, there is a fairly large percentage of people that will reach out and they already have a sort of go-to solution in mind. Oh, hey, Mo, can you hop on a call for an hour with me? Oh, can we get a coffee? Whatever it is. They often won't even tell you what it's about, but they say, can we do this thing? And oftentimes, when I was less experienced professionally, I would be just sort of bullied into it by assuming, oh, well, if they're asking for an hour of my time, they must need it. Like, it must be something important. No, they often have just no idea. They're asking for it because they're asking for it. So the simple act of saying, hey, Mo, what would you like to talk about? It sometimes is so incredibly powerful because it turns out, okay, oftentimes they might have an erroneous perception of what you do. Oh, Dorie, I wanted to ask you for advice about how to start a career in international trade. Well, gosh, Mo, I'd really like to help you, but I don't know anything about international trade. Good luck, but I'm not your woman. And you can veer them off. Other times, people might just not have anything really formed. Oh, hey, Dorie, I want to have a job like yours, and I'd like some advice. Well, okay, in that case, we can already tell this is going to be a complete waste of time. They haven't done any research. You can actually push back and say, oh, well, that's so wonderful. I'm really excited. Here, this book and this book have been really helpful and influential to me. Why don't you read them? And then when you have, you come back and then we'll meet. And if just by making them go through some basic hoops, you often lose 30 to 40% of the people. And this is actually great. You want to lose these people because it is the other people, the persistent people, the responsible people that are the ones that are worth your time. So that early screening mechanism can be quite valuable.
Oh, I love it. So let's go one more on this one. So let's say somebody asks for some time and you make them go through some hoops. So when I think of our clientele, it'd be a little different than that last example, although that makes sense, right? But say somebody's an account executive at a big healthcare company, for example, and they're being asked to do something by some group that has them track things. They want a report. They want a whole bunch of stuff filled out. Let's use your method on that. How can we use the method in that scenario? Does that even make sense?
Well, I think that one way that we can often do it, I mean, there's a few buckets of solutions that I suggest to people, right? So if we want to dispatch with things quickly, so number one, always the triage is you ask for more information. Okay, what do you want to talk about? What is it? So number two is really sort of asking for a certain amount of granularity as well, right? So for instance, here's a great example. I'm working on a project with some folks. They said, "Oh, we want to have a 45-minute call with you." How did they come up with 45 minutes? I don't know. I'm not convinced that's the exact right number. We want to have a 45-minute call with you to go over the shooting plan for our filming that's going to take place next week. Okay, I'm sure we need to talk about it a little bit. I'm not convinced we need to talk 45 minutes about it. So asking for an agenda in advance can be very valuable.
Yeah, keep going. This is great.
Yeah, that way you're able to scan through it. Some things you're going to actually want to have a legitimate conversation with. Others, people sometimes, like, they'll literally read this thing. They'll walk you through, "Well, Dorie, you need to arrive by noon, and here's the address." And it's like, it's on the document. So I'm actually good with that. Why don't we skip to number 4? Because that's the thing that we need to really process. So you can make it go faster is another great way to do it. Another possibility is to say, well, is there a different way you could do it? Could you do it asynchronously? So you could say, okay, you know what? Oh my gosh, I'm so busy. I have calls all day tomorrow, but could you just email me the question you have or the questions you have? I'll send you a voice memo. And then great, you're able to bang it out in the car or on the way home or whatever. And you don't have to actually take time when you're in the middle of your workday to be doing it. So those are some strategies. Also, if somebody wants to meet, a classic one that I like to suggest is invite them to something you're already doing. So back when we get back to the real world and people are going to events, if you're already planning to go to the networking night at the Chamber of Commerce or whatever, just invite them to come along. Or you could actually host an event. Oh, well, I'm hosting a virtual cocktails. Why don't you come to it? And then you can connect with people at the same time.
I love it. Something you were already doing, and then they'll get that check. They can check the box on their end. I got some time with Dorie, but you didn't have to spend the extra 1 hour with somebody.
It makes it scalable.
Tell us how people can hold themselves accountable in their busy world of getting distracted all the time. How can people hack their own habits and keep doing the things that you've been telling us about?
Fantastic question, Mo, because of course it is true. Many of us know what we should be doing, but it becomes a lot harder in the implementation because we are busy. We are pulled in a million different directions. And so actually in the long game, one of the places that I start, the very first chapter, is about this question of why exactly we're so busy. One of the really arresting statistics that I read in the course of my research is that 97% of senior leaders said that strategy is one of the most critical aspects of their job. And of course, that's probably not surprising, right? A senior leader, right? They need to set the strategy. They need to be smart about that. Meanwhile, a separate study said that 96% of senior leaders said they didn't have enough time for strategy. And just if we think about that for a minute, if we zoom out, we realize, okay, literally almost everybody except for 1% of people said that one of the most important aspects of their job they don't have time for. What is going on? What is possibly going on? I mean, yes, there's a lot of meetings and emails, but come on. So one of the very first things that is important is that we actually, I think, have to get honest with ourselves, because the truth is, as I sort of discovered in the course of writing this and researching it, many of the constraints of busyness are actually things that in some ways we are putting on ourselves. Now, of course, it is true you are busy. You have lots of things, lots of obligations, but there is actually, for many of us, a culture of busyness and research by Columbia University has shown that busyness, especially in Western societies, often equates to self-worth. And we feel better about ourselves if we're busy. We often use busyness as a way of distracting ourselves sometimes from difficult questions about what I should be doing, or where is my life going, or should I actually be in this job, or whatever it is. So really facing that and saying, okay, I what would it look like if I actually didn't feel like I had to be so performatively busy? Is one question that I've actually been grappling with a lot myself personally. And I think as we also go through and really get clear on, well, what is important? What do we want to be doing? Another strategy that I wanted to mention that I talk about in the long game, which is coming out in September of 2021, is about the power of pre-commitment. And this is something that is really a useful tool. I mean, if we go back to Greek mythology, we know about it in the Odyssey when Odysseus is strapping himself to the mast because he has heard that the sirens their sound is so captivating, everybody just commits suicide basically by throwing themselves into the water to get closer to the sound. What does he do? He stuffs his ears with wax preventatively because he knows that he is going to be tempted. And so similarly, how can we set up structures in our lives that actually help push us to better behavior? I mean, obviously hiring a gym trainer is one of the most classic examples of this, but are there accountability groups? Are there just even an accountability partner that we can use? How can we strategize? There's a woman that I profile in the book named Kim Cantor-Gianni, and I love her story. She decided she wanted to finally get serious about weight loss. And she actually did a pound-a-thon, she called it, with her friends, where they agreed to pledge a certain amount of money for every pound that she lost to a battered women's shelter. So she really felt like, oh my gosh, if I'm going out with people, if I'm like out in town, I cannot afford to be seen with the Snickers bar because I'm literally letting down battered women. Like if you create those structures for yourself, it enables you much more easily to make the habit of good behavior rather than bad patterns.
I want to double click on this because I think it's really powerful. I loved all the stats you shared, the 97 and 96%. I love this idea of the power of pre-commitment. So double click on that. Put yourself in the shoes of a busy professional at Console. They've got one foot in delivery of some big bunch of projects that have been purchased, and they've got one foot into they've got to focus on business development going forward, but they just feel overwhelmed. They're working 80 hours a week. How could pre-commitment help that person, that extreme example, just do as much as they potentially could squeeze in during this busy period so they don't emerge from the other side and haven't done anything over months and months?
Absolutely. Well, oftentimes it's about thinking, what is even more painful than doing the thing you're supposed to do? So I'll give you an example. For a lot of us, especially responsible, high-achieving professionals, we really hate to break commitments. And so if you have an assistant, you can have an assistant do it. You can do it yourself. But if you were to proactively set up networking lunches, let's say, or a Zoom call or whatever, and you do it 8 weeks in advance, you have it on the calendar. And in the moment, you might feel so busy. Oh, I can't do it. And then you realize, oh God, I'm going to have to cancel. And like, they're going to be insulted, or even worse, I have to cancel and then reschedule. And when am I going to do it? I don't have any time. It's easier to just do it. And you will find the time. You will make the time to do it. We all are familiar with Parkinson's law that the work will expand to the time that we have to fill it. And so if you have carved out the hour or the half an hour previously, it often is much easier to just go ahead and do it rather than play cleanup and spend another hour trying to reschedule it. And so if we do that, we can actually enforce and reinforce the good habits that we want to have.
I love that. In the idea of setting up ahead of time, it'd be a whole lot easier to continue those dialogues with other clients, keeping the relationship warm, being helpful, all that kind of stuff. That's a whole lot easier to squeeze that in during the busy periods than emerge 6 or 9 or 12 months later and have talk to anybody like, hey, I was really busy. I really didn't care about you. And now I'm back. Yeah, that's not a good message. That's almost harder. So I love this idea. Let me ask you one last question on this topic, and I'll ask a closing question about how people can connect with you. But the last question is one thing we found that was really helpful in some coaching that we were doing is while we were going through all this like mental gyrations with somebody trying to help him figure out, or a small group of people trying to figure out what was less important than business development. We're like, well, this is important. That's important. Everything's important. But when they would do business development activities early in the day, the rest of the day would just sort of sort itself out, right? And I feel like maybe that's a pre-commitment idea, is if you do the hardest or long game kind of things first, the rest of the day will sort itself out. Is that an angle to this too?
I think that's great. Absolutely. Yes, because so it's like doctor's appointments, right? If you're going to have a doctor's appointment, you usually want to be the first one there, not the last one there, because there's this cascade of lateness where you might be the first one in at 8 o'clock in the morning. But if you have the 4:30 appointment, well, oh my gosh, you're still waiting there at 5:15 because everybody before you has been 3 minutes late and 5 minutes late, and it adds up. So if you can get the thing done, you just knock it off, you write the email, you make the phone call, you do what you need to do, then it's much better, because otherwise all of the chaos of the day, like you might have planned to do it at 5 o'clock at night, but just it has been swamped by the tsunami and it's never going to happen.
By now, you're likely convinced that playing the long game of relationship development is the right way to get ahead in your career and to help the people you want to serve. To keep going on this journey, watch this video next. I think you're going to love it. Thanks for listening, and talk more soon.